Welcome back, everybody. Um, Today is going to be a special episode of Pipe Dreams Ramda Deep Dive Season 2. We're ready to start on the S's, but instead, I'm going to rewind all the way back up to lenses. So I learned what lenses are, and they're not complicated. I'm sure they can be, but to get started with it, they're actually pretty simple and indeed as cool as everybody says they are. I have to stop doing things like hearing about something and being told that they're complicated, only to find out that they're not. Um, you know, with experience, I should be over that at this point. Um, and as a side note, I did my first PR request yesterday for Ramda. That pipe width function had no code example, and I thought it needed one. So that was a personal achievement for me. So we'll see if that gets accepted. There was a uh, an example, a demo, but it wasn't rendering for some reason. Anyhow, uh, so let's get into lenses. And I think the best way to do it is actually lenses is the most or lens is the most complicated of all these lens related functions. And so we're going to go over lens, view, set over, lens index, lens prop, and lens path. So that's what, seven, five, six, seven? Yeah. But we're going to start with lens prop because I think that you're going to be using this in real life, lens prop mostly, and then lens path, and then sometimes lens index, and in rare cases, lens. And these four functions are the functions that create a lens. So, what's a lens? Let's start with that. So, a lens, if you think about it like a physical lens that would be in a camera, it's designed to focus in on a subsection of an object or an array. But for now, an object, right? So, this isn't too nested, but we know in real life that our data structures can be like insanely nested, especially when we're um, getting data from a REST API or something. So, for example, we could create a lens that would focus on this, and then it provides a way for us to immutably read. Well, always you would always read immutably, but you can set uh, a new value immutably, so you can focus in on that on this, change this, set the values, and it will return a new object, not just the piece. Um, And you can also transform the values. So, you can read, you can set, or you can update. And when I say update, like you start with the current value and you use that to generate a new value. And that's what view, set, and overdo. But let's start with lens prop because before we can do these things, we need to create a lens. And I'm going to use, well, let's just make our own example. So I've got some data here, this user, and I'm going to make a I'm going to make a name lens. I'll call it name lens. And because it's a property, lens prop handles creating a lens on a property that is on a flat object or, at least like the first thing in an object, not a nested thing. So we do r.lens prop, and then we just pass it. Um, the thing that we want to focus on, the prop, right? So we pass it the prop by a string, so we'd say name, and now we've got this name lens, right? So this is basically creating like a structure. We're not actually doing anything with it yet. We're just creating it. But now we have a way to drill straight into this name property and do things with the value. So the description says it returns a lens whose focus is the specified property, and the specified property is name. So we're focused in just on this, right? Um, it takes a string, and here's the name, and it returns a lens. And the S is like a structure, and the A is a value. It's the value that we're focused on inside the structure. So that's how you read that. You could also say the lens has a structure and the value that we're focused on. Um, it's inside a functor, which we call F. So it could take a function that takes an A, which is like the name, and returns a functor of an A. And then it takes a structure and it returns that structure inside the functor. Okay. So this isn't all that important right now. And I think this is one of the things that complicates things. Focus on the first definition. Really easy. You give it a string, it gives you back a lens. We gave it a name, it gave us back a name lens. So now we can go and start doing things with it. So let's look at these view, set, and over functions that work with lenses. So the view takes a lens, which contains its structure and the value we're focused on, and then you pass it a structure, or I should say, the lens provides a way, given a structure, to get to the A. So then we provide it the structure, and then it shows us the value of A. So it returns a view of the given data structure determined by the lens. The lens's focus determines which portion of the data structure is visible. So that's what this lens does. So this basically is like a getter. And I should have said that at the beginning. The lens provides a getter and a setter for the thing that the lens is focusing on. And it provides a way to transform the value using over. The view is like the getter, set is like the setter, and over is like the updater or the transformation. Um, so very simply, we're going to log, and the first thing we're going to do, so we're going to do art.view, and we want to view the value of the lens. So the first thing we have to do is tell it what lens we're working with. It's our name lens. And then we need to give it the data structure, which is a user, and it gives us back the name, right? So it's just a getter, like a very simple getter, like you would use with classes. Um, and then, of course, I think the power comes when you partially apply it. You could say like view name equals r.view and which lens you're working with. And then so we could just call view name on a user. Let me try to save it. And we get Atlas. So let's continue with um, this format here. Yeah, I think this is even easier to read. It takes a lens, view takes a lens and an X, and it returns something, like whatever the X is. Uh, that. So let's do the next obvious one. If we know how to get a value in a lens, let's learn how to set it. So this one takes a lens and it takes a value, and then it takes the structure and returns a new structure. Yeah, there's the lens, there's the value, uh, and then there's the structure. So it's very similar syntax. So if I wanted to set the name of Alice, I can make a setter called set name, make that r.set, and give it the name of the lens. And so now I've got a set name. So name takes the name of the lens, and then it's going to take the value that we want to set, like the new value. So I'm going to change Alice to Bob. Better make that a string. And then we need the data structure. And so I think I got this mixed up. Yeah, I do. We already passed the user, or sorry, we already passed the lens to set. So we already know what lens we're working with. So now we need to set the new value, and then we need the data structure, right? So the same thing as view name, but it's just like we pass here we just say, this is the structure we want to get the name out of, and this is the structure we want to set. And so we're going to set the name Bob on user. Think that's right? Yeah. So now we've got this lens back, or not the lens, but we get the whole user object back, but we see that name is now Bob, and it is a new object. We did not mutate the object. And then the next thing you might want to do is you might want to update something. You don't want to provide it a value. You want to take the current value, use that in a function to return a new value, and then, of course, return a whole new object with the updated value. And that is called over. And over reminds me a little bit of call and apply, because it's basically you're going to give it a function and you're going to give it some data, and it's going to apply the function to the data. Um, but you but the function that's doing all that is called over, like the same way you'd use call or apply. So this one is going to take your lens, and it's going to take a transformation function that takes the value that the lens is focusing on and return a new value. And then you give it the structure, and then it returns a new structure. So it returns the result of setting the portion of the given data structure focused by the given lens to the result of applying the given function to the focus value, right? So let's call this um, update lens, and we do r.over. And so that the first argument is the lens. So we're going to partially apply that with the name lens, and that's all we'll do. And then when we call it, we're going to call update lens, and we're going to pass in two things: the function that we want to apply to the value, and then the value. The function I'm going to use their example and do r to upper, and then the object, which is the user. And let's comment these out since I don't have a lot of screen real estate here. And here we go. So we got ID 1, but name Alice is now uppercased. And then we've got our settings. So that is the majority of what a lens does and how to use a lens. Um, Again, not all that complicated and super useful in the real world, because we deal with these just crazy nested objects, and just sometimes there's so much data, it's just hard to deal with. So this allows you to just focus in on something and just ignore the noise, black box into something. Uh, but in the real world, we don't have flat objects, right? We have nested objects. So that's where lens path comes into the picture. So lens path takes an array of indexes and returns a lens. And a lens, like normal, an index could be a string, an int, or a symbol. A string if it's a key of an object, an int if it's the key in an array, the auto-generated keys, or a symbol in weird cases. And this returns a lens whose focus is the specified path, right? Versus whose focus is the specified property. You are going to specify a property, um, unless it's well, even if it's an array, it's still a property. But you're going to tell it how to get down to the property. So let's go in here and make a new lens called an email lens. And we'll make the lens by doing lens path. And we're going to need to provide it one argument, which is an array of indexes. And like a lot of these path functions, functions that end with path, you're using strings and you start with the topmost element in the path or the topmost property in a path, and then you specify it and then comma and then the next property as you're drilling down. So let's do that manually. So we've got our user and we want our email. We want the lens to be on this. What we would do is we'd start with the first thing, which is settings, because in the flat part of the object, settings is the first thing. We'll grab that. And then the next thing is our notifications. It's like dot. And then the last thing would be the email. So let's put this on a line. Actually, let's do it like this. I think that's good enough. So now we've got our email lens, and we're focused in on this email true. And now we can um, view it, set it, or run a function over it. What I'll do is I'll leave all that. I'll comment this out. And then let's just do the same thing. So let's use our view. But actually, I'm not going to make these intermediate functions. We'll just do it all at one time. So this is our email lens. That's what we want to view. And uh, we want to apply that lens to our user object. And so we should see true. And we get an error. View is not defined. No, it is not. But r.view is. Try that again. And we get true. So let's say we want to set it. I forget which one's the first argument. The lens, then the value, then the structure. Okay, so the lens, so it's the same thing. We just need another argument right here. And let's set that to, well, I mean, false, right? I mean, we could set it to anything really, but let's see what we get back. We should get a new structure back. We do. And email is now false. Um, I wonder if we could do it like not r.view email lens user, and we get the same thing, false. But let's go back to the more simple. version, you know, because likely you would be like toggling it. Maybe not. Maybe you just want to specifically set it to false. And what could we do? We let's log. Let's do this. Let's log and do r.over. And the first argument is the lens. So it's the email lens. And the second argument is the function that we want to apply to the value of the lens. And I want to coerce it to a number because that's all I can think about what to do to transform a Boolean value. Probably should have picked a different value to begin with. And then the data structure. And so now we should get this whole object back, but email should be one because we're coercing it to a number. If I understand types correctly in JavaScript, and honestly, who does? And I got it right. It's a one. And then if I change this to false from the beginning, I get a zero. And that's common. So I see a lot of things. I work with a lot of email services and things like that where they use numbers for true and false, zero and one, in their database. Yeah, so that's the path. So I think mostly you'll be using prop and path, view set and over. Um, Sometimes you'll be working with arrays, and if you do, you can use lens index. This one takes a number and returns a lens, where the path takes indexes, which are keys, and returns a lens, and prop takes a string and returns a lens. Otherwise, they're pretty much the same. So I need an array. Um, what can I do here? Settings, dark. We could just do like a skills, and we could do like FP, CSS, and JavaScript. So now we've got an array in here. Um, so going back to what we've been doing, let me comment this out. We could do a lens index of skills lens and do r dot lens index, and then we're just this is still a property really, but we'll do index one. So we'll focus on the second thing in the lens, the CSS. And I wonder what happens if we just log that. Like, what does skills index or skills lens look like? Is it a function? Yeah, it's a function. What kind of arguments or how many arguments does it take? It takes one argument. I'm not sure what it is, but that's okay. And we'll do this all at once. So uh, first, we want to view our lens. So we'll take our skill lens and we will just pass in the structure, right? Factory function. Let's look here. So we've got our lens. Yeah, and then we're just passing it the data structure. So we'll pass it our users. And we don't get the right thing because users is not defined. Is it user? Yeah, it's user. Okay, so I'm missing something. So we got our lens index one. Oh, yeah, okay. This won't work just by itself because we're nested. No, we're not nested down, but we are. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to make another lens called, uh, I have a skilled lens. Okay, hold on a second. This should be called, here I should use lens prop because first I need to get um, the skills, not the skulls, skills. Then I can do a like second, I can't do that. Skills second lens, and then I can do that r dot lens index and say I want the first, or in terms of arrays, the second, zero, and the one. And then what I could do is I could, let's make sure we can view it first. And so the best way to do this, I think, would be to use compose. In fact, let's do it like this, const um, second skill, second skill. And we have to use compose when you do this. You can't pipe. And so I think about it like composing, like it reads left to right, even though you're using compose, but you're really like composing from the inside out. So here we would compose our skill lens and then our skill second lens. So remember, this is composed, so we're applying this function first and then this one. It's like making the inner part, which is our this guy, or actually, I'm sorry, it's a lens that focuses on this guy here. And then we're going to wrap that inside a lens that focuses on this whole thing. But we start with this thing and then this as far as the order that we put here. I think that's right. We're going to give it a go. Um, so our second skill, and we're going to pass. Oh, I'm sorry. R.view, our second skill, and then the data structure, which is user. In a perfect world, I got that right. Let's see. And we do. We get the CSS. And often you'll see this, but remember you have to use compose. To me, I would think you do this in the same order, but this would be pipe because first you generate the outer thing. Because how do you put an inner thing inside something that doesn't exist yet? But this is programming, and so this is the way it works. So we could do that, and then we could do r.set and pass in our second skill lens and then the value that we want to set. And let's do, here's one I'm going to start learning is PureScript, which is like a light version of Haskell kind of, and it compiles to JavaScript as well as some other languages. Um, but it's kind of like the language I've been looking for that I never knew existed. Um, so that's what we're going to change it to, and then the data structure. And then so we should get the same structure here, but instead of CSS, it should say PureScript. And we do. There we go. We've got PureScript now. And then what can we do to use over? We can map. So we can do r dot over second skill. That's the lens. And then we could r dot map and r dot cat a taco. And where does that end? Here. And then pass in the user. And if that worked, it did. We get FP. Oh, but we don't want to concat. We want to append. And no, we don't. What do we want to do? For each item, I mean, this doesn't matter, but I kind of want to figure it out. What if we chain? It's like flat map. Did I do anything? Did I even save it? Okay, so there's that one, that one. Intersperse? Oh man. Uh, okay. Get rid of that. And that. And intersperse. Save that. Clear that. Oh yeah, this makes sense because I'm not mapping over the skills. I'm mapping over the item, the second item. Yeah. If I mapped over the skills, which I have that here, if I use this lens, let's test that. If I use the skills lens, I think I'll get, wait, what's it called? Skills lens. This will get what I thought I was going to get. Because I thought I was mapping over the entire skills array. Yeah, FP taco, CSS taco, JS. Yeah. So anyway, that's how index works and how you can combine two lenses or to compose two lenses. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, cool. So we've done the view set over. We've done lens prop, lens path, and lens index. And the last thing is lens. And so this is like the more general version where you create your own setter or getter and setter, and it returns a lens. So this is getting messy. Let's clean this up. And we'll leave the same user object. And let me clear that. So the type signature, again, we're not going to worry about the functors so much right here, but it takes two arguments. The first one is your getter, the second one is your setter, and it returns a lens. So getter, setter, and lens. It returns a lens for for the given getter and setter functions. The getter gets the value of the focus, the setter sets the value of the focus, and the setter should not mutate the data structure, right? Because we don't do that things. Um, so let's just make a general one. So we'll use the ID and we'll say const ID lens and we'll set that to r.lens. And the first thing is a getter function. So let's think, how would we do that? Oh, well, I really like their example. So yeah, the easiest way to get something, we're going to pass it this user. So we could just say r.prop ID, and that is our getter. It's going to look for a property called ID and give us the value. Very simple. So now we just need our setter, right? And our setter is going to take, so it's an A and S. So it's doing that weird thing where it's giving us the value and then the key instead of the key and the value. And then we could do, um, what are we making, a setter? So then, since we're going to return a new object, right? Because we're not mutating. And since we're returning an object, I have to wrap it in parentheses if it's on one line, so it knows the difference between an object and the body of a function. And we'll take our value. Well, first we'll take. Well, you know what? If I'm doing it like this, I'm going to have to use a point because what we're essentially doing, like if we had our object that we were passing in, and we called it X, we would be doing a copy of the X, but overriding the value, or let's say obj. That make more sense. And then if it was like obj dot name equals Bob or something, but it's this pattern. Like this isn't going to work syntactically because this is point free. But essentially, what we're doing is we're taking the current value and key, and then we're just returning a copy of that object, but we're going to overwrite the name or overwrite the one of the properties with a new value. And this is just a very common pattern in functional programming. But since we're doing it point free, let's do what they're doing and using this r.assoc. And this is just saying we're going to associate this with the ID, like whatever the new value is that we pass in is going to be used for the ID. You can go back and look at the assoc function. It's not too important right now. Um, yeah, yeah, okay. So now we can go in here since we've made our own lens without any of these helper functions like lens prop or lens path. We should be able to do something like r.set. We pass it the ID lens. Let's increment the ID and let's give it the data structure and cross our fingers, save, and we get a function back. Oh, okay. That doesn't work because I'm calling a function. I should be passing a value, but it should work if we do over. So let's start with that one. And we do. We incremented the function. So again, like just such an easy, clean way to do this. And it reads like documentation. But what I meant to do was set. So let's set this to 42 and we get back our copy of an object with the ID is now 42. And since we're going backwards, let's view it. I mean, you can make a view set and then you're over, you could make one view, one set, and then several over functions partially applied with different functions. And then just call that function over and over again. All you do is pass it the data. And it's just like, you know, you forget about it, or you can forget about how it's actually working. You just view, set, and transform the values. Anyway, we get one, which is the value there. So that's lenses. And we just covered seven functions. I find that they're pretty simple. And now we can cross those off the list. And in the next video, we'll go back to start on the S's. They're in here somewhere. Picking up a scan. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something. I did. Um, Thanks for spending your time with me. Tell a friend, and I'll see you in the next video.